The cold night air trembled with silence as an old man stood alone under a flickering street lamp. His wrinkled hands clutched at the empty case in disbelief. The metals were gone. They weren't just pieces of metal, they were his life, his blood, his sacrifice. Each ribbon told a story of battles fought, of brothers lost, of promises kept. And now, in a single cruel act, thieves had ripped away the only proof of his honor. Franklin Hayes, a decorated war veteran, had never once cried on the battlefield, but tonight, tears slid down his weathered face. The wooden bench beneath him felt colder than steel, and for the first time since war, he felt powerless. He whispered to himself, voice breaking, "They took everything I had left." A shadow moved in the distance. Laughter. Rough, careless, mocking laughter. The same men who had robbed him strutted down the street, flashing the stolen metals like trophies in the neon light of the bar across the road. To them, it was a game, shiny trinkets to sell for quick money. To Franklin, it was his soul being paraded in front of him. The bar door slammed shut, and engines roared in the distance. A low rumble that grew heavier, deeper, rolling across the asphalt like thunder. Franklin looked up, confused, as the vibrations reached the bench beneath his boots. One by one, silhouettes emerged, powerful bikes slicing through the darkness, headlights piercing the night. Leather jackets glinted, chains swung at their sides, and the rhythm of their engines sounded less like machines and more like war drums. The thieves froze, laughter cut short. Something in the air shifted, a storm was coming. Franklin's trembling hands tightened around the empty metal case. For the first time in hours, hope flickered in his tired eyes. Because when bikers ride together, they don't just come for the road. They come for justice. Franklin Hayes had always been a quiet man. Neighbors in his small town knew him as the old veteran who tipped his hat politely at the grocery store, who never missed a morning at the park, and who kept a folded American flag above the mantelpiece in his modest living room. Few truly understood the weight he carried, the nightmares that visited him when the world was asleep, or the empty space at his kitchen table where his wife once sat before cancer took her away. The medals weren't for glory. Franklin never boasted about them, never flaunted them. They were reminders, of battles where friends never returned, of nights spent in trenches, of promises he swore to keep. His wife used to polish them every Memorial Day, whispering, "These aren't medals, Frank. These are memories." When she passed, the medals became the last piece of his heart. Each morning, he would sit by the window, open the case, and trace his fingers across the cold metal, whispering the names of the men he fought beside. They weren't just symbols, they were the only bridge connecting him to a past he couldn't let go of. But as the years stretched on, Franklin grew fragile. The strength that once carried him across battlefields now strained just to carry groceries home. The town had changed too, younger faces with restless hearts, some good, some reckless. Among them were 3 men who spent more time chasing trouble than chasing honest work. They saw Franklin one evening, sitting alone in the park with the case on his lap, staring at the medals as if they were gold. To them, they weren't memories. They were money. That night, Franklin returned home to find his front door kicked in. His living room ransacked. And the case, the one he guarded with his very soul, gone. His breath caught, his chest tightened, and the old soldier who once stormed enemy lines now collapsed to his knees, powerless against the cruelty of petty thieves. He reported it to the police, but the young officer behind the desk gave him nothing but a tired shrug. "We'll look into it, sir," the man muttered, already distracted by paperwork. To the system, it was just another theft. To Franklin, it was a betrayal so deep it felt like the war had come back to take more from him. For days he searched, pawn shops, back alleys, anywhere he thought the thieves might try to cash in. But everywhere he went, he found only smirks, indifference, or doors slammed in his face. The world had moved on. Nobody cared for the old soldier anymore. Until that night under the street lamp, when fate placed the thieves and their cruel laughter within sight of Franklin's broken heart. And fate, it seemed, had also called for something else. Because miles away, in a run-down garage filled with roaring engines and brotherhood stronger than steel, word had spread. Someone had stolen from a veteran. someone had crossed a line that should never be crossed. And bikers had long memories. The thieves grew bolder with every passing night. What began as a cruel theft soon turned into mockery. They strutted through the town's bars, clinking glasses while Franklin's medals dangled around their necks like cheap jewelry. "Can you believe this? Old man's treasures, and now they're ours," one sneered, laughter echoing through the smoky haze of the tavern. The youngest of the three, cocky and reckless, even posted a blurry photo on social media, medals hanging against his leather jacket, captioned with, "War spoils. Easy money soon." The picture spread like wildfire, but instead of shame, the thieves basked in the attention. People whispered in the corners of diners and shops, shaking their heads at the disrespect, but no one stepped forward. Fear had settled into the town like a heavy fog. Everyone knew these men had friends in dark places, men who dealt in stolen goods, drugs, and intimidation. Franklin, meanwhile, sank deeper into despair. Each night he sat by the empty case, staring at the hollow space where his memories used to rest. His hands trembled, not just from age but from helplessness. He had fought enemies with guns, tanks, and fire raining from the sky, but he couldn't fight this. Not anymore. The police remained silent. Not enough evidence, they said, though Franklin had shown them the photos, the names, the places. It was as if justice had turned its back on him. The thieves sensed that silence too. Their arrogance grew. They stopped hiding, parading the medals like kings wearing crowns stolen from a fallen soldier. And the town? The town watched in shame, powerless. But somewhere on the edge of that shame, the low growl of engines began to stir. The disrespect shown to Franklin wasn't just another crime, it was a challenge, an insult to every man and woman who knew what sacrifice meant. And when such a line is crossed, the kind of justice that rides on two wheels does not stay quiet for long. The storm was building. And soon, the roar of thunder would shake the streets. The night was restless, the town unusually quiet, as though holding its breath. Then it came, the first deep rumble of engines rolling down the highway. One by one, headlights cut through the darkness, a wall of light and steel cresting over the hill. The sound wasn't just noise, it was a warning. A storm had come, not of weather, but of men bound by loyalty, respect, and justice. They rode in formation, 100 strong, chrome gleaming under the moon. Leather jackets stitched with patches of history and honor glinted like armor. Their presence was thunderous, every throttle a battle cry. The streets, once haunted by the thieves' laughter, now vibrated with power. Curtains parted from darkened windows, shop doors cracked open, and townsfolk stepped onto porches just to witness the spectacle. At the center of the pack was their leader, broad-shouldered, eyes sharp behind his visor. To the town, he was known simply as Reaper, a man who'd lived hard roads and carried the weight of every brother he'd ever lost. He wasn't just here for Franklin. He was here for what Franklin represented: sacrifice, honor, dignity. They didn't roar into town for glory. They came for justice. The bikers pulled into the heart of the town square, engines idling like growling beasts, their arrival impossible to ignore. The thieves, drunk and stumbling out of the tavern, froze mid-laugh. Their cocky smiles faltered. The medals they had once flaunted now felt heavier around their necks, no longer trophies, but shackles dragging them toward judgment. Reaper killed his engine, silence falling like a blade. He stepped off his bike, boots crunching against the gravel, and lifted his chin toward the thieves. His voice was low, steady, and carried like a hammer through the night. "You don't dishonor a veteran. Not in this town. Not while we breathe." Behind him, the rest of the bikers dismounted, forming a wall of leather and steel. It wasn't violence they brought first, it was presence. A unity so strong, it bent the air. The townsfolk who had been too afraid before now felt their spines straighten, courage rippling through them like fire catching dry grass. Franklin, standing at the edge of the square with his empty case in hand, felt tears sting his eyes. For days he had been invisible, ignored, cast aside. But now, as those engines quieted, as dozens of men stood in defiance for him, he realized he was no longer alone. The thieves shuffled nervously, trying to laugh off the moment, but their voices cracked. One tried to step forward, metals clinking against his chest, but the weight of 100 eyes burned through him. Reaper didn't move closer yet. He simply folded his arms and let the silence grow heavier. Sometimes justice didn't need fists right away, sometimes it needed truth, raw and undeniable. And in that silence, the thieves realized what they had summoned. They hadn't just stolen from a broken old man. They had declared war on every biker who carried loyalty like blood in their veins. And bikers never left a war unfinished. The air in the square was heavy, electric. The thieves' swagger evaporated, replaced by darting eyes and shaky hands. The metals that had once made them feel powerful now felt like fire against their skin. Reaper stepped forward, slow and deliberate, his boots echoing on the pavement. The crowd of bikers didn't move, but their presence was a tidal wave, pressing down on the thieves from all sides. "You think these are yours?" Reaper's voice was low, cutting. He pointed to the medals hanging on the thief's chest. "Every one of those was bought with blood. Not yours. Not your father's. His." He turned slightly, nodding toward Franklin, who stood trembling, clutching the empty case to his chest. The old veteran's eyes glistened with pain and disbelief. For once, the town that had turned its back on him was gathered, and standing behind him. The oldest thief tried to mask his fear with a grin. "Relax, old man. They're just shiny trinkets. We didn't mean." Reaper's hand shot up, silencing him. "Say another word and I'll show you how bikers handle disrespect." The thief's mouth clamped shut. The crowd of townsfolk that had gathered began murmuring. Someone shouted, "Give them back." Another voice, trembling with anger, added, "He earned those." For the first time, the thieves realized it wasn't just the bikers they faced. It was the entire town, rising against them. Reaper reached forward, gripping the largest metal off the thief's chain. He yanked it so hard the cheap clasp snapped. Holding it up, he turned and walked toward Franklin. His rough hands, scarred from years on the road, gently placed the metal into Franklin's trembling palm. "This belongs where it was earned," Reaper said softly. Franklin's knees buckled, but two bikers stepped forward, steadying him. His lip quivered as he stared at the metal in his hand, his breath shaking. I thought they were gone forever," he whispered. But the showdown wasn't finished. The youngest thief, angry and embarrassed, shoved forward. "You can't just take them. They're ours now. You don't scare me." Before he could finish, the roar of 50 engines fired to life in unison. The sound drowned out his words, rattled the glass of shop windows, and sent birds scattering into the night sky. The thieves staggered back, covering their ears. Reaper moved like lightning. In 2 strides, he was nose to nose with the boy. His voice was a growl. "You want to earn something? Go work a job. Go bleed for something that matters. But these?" He snatched the rest of the medals from the thief's neck with one sharp tug. "These are untouchable." The bikers closed in, their presence suffocating. The thieves dropped to their knees, begging now, pride shattered. The townsfolk, once afraid, now shouted openly, demanding respect for Franklin, demanding justice. And justice came not with fists, but with humiliation. Reaper ordered the thieves to stand. With the entire town watching, he forced them to walk across the square, step by step, until they stood in front of Franklin. "Apologize," Reaper barked. The thieves stammered, voices cracking. We're sorry. We didn't know, we didn't understand." Franklin, tears streaming down his face, finally found his voice. It was quiet, but it cut through the night stronger than any shout. "You didn't steal from me. You stole from every man who never came home. Remember that." The crowd erupted, some clapping, some crying. Reaper handed Franklin the last of his medals, placing them carefully into the case. As the old man closed it, his trembling hands steadied, strength returning to his fragile frame. The bikers didn't touch the thieves again. They didn't need to. Their humiliation, their shame, was punishment enough. And the message was clear: disrespect would never be tolerated. As the thieves slunk away under the watchful eyes of the entire town, Franklin looked up at Reaper. His voice broke as he whispered, "Thank you, all of you." Reaper simply placed a hand on his shoulder. "We don't do this for thanks, old man. We do this because some things are sacred. And those medals, they'll always be sacred." The engines growled once more, ready to ride into the night. But the town would never forget what they had witnessed. The square was quiet now, the roar of engines fading into the distance as the bikers rode out together, headlights disappearing into the night like shooting stars. They didn't wait for applause, didn't linger for praise. That wasn't their way. Justice had been delivered, and their job was done. Franklin stood in the center of the square, clutching the case against his chest. For days it had been empty, a hollow reminder of everything he'd lost. But now, it was full again, not just with medals, but with the dignity and honor that had been stolen from him. His tears were no longer from sorrow, but from gratitude. The townsfolk gathered around him. Neighbors who had once turned away now stepped forward, some offering handshakes, others hugs. An old woman pressed her hand to his shoulder. A young boy, eyes wide with awe, whispered, "You're a hero." For the first time in years, Franklin felt seen. Not as a forgotten veteran, not as a man left behind, but as someone who had given everything for the freedoms they now enjoyed. The shame that had weighed heavy on the town was lifted, replaced with pride. He opened the metal case one last time under the street lamp. The ribbons glowed softly in the golden light, and Franklin whispered the names of the brothers he'd lost, not with grief this time, but with peace. As he closed the case, he looked toward the dark highway where the bikers had vanished. His voice, though quiet, carried through the night. "They don't even know what they've given me back." But the truth was, they did. That was why they came. And so the story of Franklin Hayes, the old soldier whose honor had been stolen, became more than just a tale of theft. It became a reminder that there are still those who ride for justice, who fight for respect, who protect what is sacred. Sometimes heroes wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear leather. And sometimes, they ride together beneath the roar of engines, unseen but unforgettable. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe for more powerful biker hero stories. Together, let's keep these stories of honor and justice alive.